Today we're learning Daf Dalet base. We will go back to the last line of Daf Gimel Amud base, so the brisa on which everything is based will be repeated, even though we did it yesterday. We learned till the end of Daf Gimel Amud base. We learned that there is a machlekes between Abaya and Rava. According to Abaya, that amas which are mentioned in the Dinei HaTorah concerning can be either amas of 5 tvachim or amas of 6 tvachim. According to Rava, all amas which are mentioned in Dinei HaTorah will be from 6 tvachim, but there is even with amas of 6 tvachim, it could be that a larger amma and a smaller amma, because if the tvachim are close to each other tight, or they're a little bit loose, that could be a difference in some dinim. In other words, according to Abaya, there is a suffix of every amma which is mentioned in the brises and mishnahs, whether we're talking about the amma of 5 tvachim and 6 tvachim, and therefore you have to always go to chumrah. And according to Rabbi, the suffix is whether we're talking about a loose tvachim or tight tvachim. But all the ammas which are mentioned in mishnahs and brises, they're all from 6 tvachim. Yeah, we mentioned it yesterday that the difference between the loose tvachim and the tight tvachim is half an etzba. That's the opinion of the Rashba. Also, just to mention that in on the wall of the Harabayis, next to the image of Shushan Abira, which was on the eastern wall of the Harabayis, next to the image of Shushan Abira, we had the measurement of Amma, and there were 2 Ammas actually, one to the right, one to the left, and one Amma was, the difference between the 2 Ammas was half an etzba. So you had actually 2 Ammas measured, which were there in the central place of right next to the Harabayis in Yerushalayim. Meisir will ask a question. This is a brisa. Kol Ammas, all the Ammas Sh'amru Chachamim, which the Chachamim say, but Amma Bashisha, you're talking about an Amma of 6 tvachim. I will point out what Tosfos says, that it says Kol Amma Sh'amru Chachamim is Ba'amma Bashisha. So it means that it's not talking about Ammas which are mentioned in the Posik. So Ammas which are mentioned in the Posik is Lav Davke, but anything which is mentioned in the Mishnahs and the Brises, those Ammas are Amma Bashisha tvachim. And that will explain why you have the Amma in the Posik with the measurements of the Mizbeach. Those Ammas are not necessarily Ammas of Shisha Tvachim, and it's not a contradiction to what it says over here in this price. Anyway, but all the other Ammas which we learn, which we'll come and speak about, is the Amma of Shisha Tvachim. Except that they're not exact. In other words, because sometimes you have to go to the the smaller amma, which is made out of the tight tvachim, and sometimes you have to go to the bigger amma, which is made out of the tvachim, 6 tvachim, which are not so tight. Okay, so the Gemara says, so to Rava, this brisa is fine. That everything is 6 and all ammas are 6, and the difference is that sometimes it's the tight tvachim and sometimes it's loose tvachim. Shoychekes is tight, that tzevus is loose, and that tzevus is tight. So that fits in. Abaya, but according to Abaya, kasha, it's a kasha because it says all the ammas which Chachamim said is from 6, composed of 6 tvachim. So Abaya said that the ammas which are mentioned, some of them are 5. We have to go l'chumra each time. So the Gemara answers, Amalach Abaya. Abaya will tell you, Ema ammas kloim, but ammas bashish. So he says, you know what? Many times we have that Mishnah or Brisa, the Gemara puts in certain corrections and so on. And so therefore the Gemara here puts that with here we're talking about when it says Kol Amash Omer Chachomim, we're talking about Bakaloyim, because Bakaloyim we have to be machmir and make the distance greater between the vineyards and the field, and therefore there it's talking about Amar Bashisha. It's talking about Kloyim. So the Gemara says, how can you say that? Because even when we make a correction, in the Brisa, there is a limit to how much you can assume needs a bit of correction or extra explanation. You have to look in the whole context of the Brisa. You'll see that sometimes you cannot do that. Well, it says, since it says in the Sefer the Brisa, Rabbi Shimon and Gamliel says, that all the Amos which the Chacham say B'Kloyim is the Amma of 6 Tvachim, except they should not be the tight ones, because by B'Kloyim we have to be machmir. So therefore you can't use the distance to measure the distance from the field to the vineyard. You cannot use the tight Tvachim, but you have to use the loose Tvachim to make it a larger distance. So, but all the Amos B'Kloyim is from Shisha Tvach. So therefore, unless, so how can you say that the Chachamim, so how the Chachamim are talking about Kalayim? Because if the Chachamim are talking about Kalayim, then it will actually be a repeat, saying the same thing as Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Michlal, the Tanakama, Kol Amas Koma. If so, Tanakama must be saying all Amas, even outside Kalayim. Because if the Tanakama is only speaking about Kalayim, and Rashi actually points out that the word Muchuvonos will have to be translated a little bit differently to mean that it's not the tight ones, but the bigger amas, because you have to measure the loose amas. But anyway, but the point is that if you say that the Chachamim are speaking about Kalayim, so then it's Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is actually just a repeat of the Tanakama. And so what is the argument about? They must be saying something different. As Bekitzer, we have now rejected this correction. We cannot say that the Tanakama, when it says Kol Amash Omer Chachomim, is speaking about Keloyim. It's speaking about, yes, for sure, the first Tana of this Brisa definitely agrees that all Amas mentioned by the Chachomim is Shisha, similar to Rabbi, and that will not be able to fit in with Abaye's opinion. So Abai will answer you, okay, yes, I agree that the Tanakama definitely is not doesn't agree with me, and is because according to him all Amas which are mentioned everywhere are 6 Tvachim. But Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, he agrees with me. The Kohen say, I'm not the Amrik Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, so I say like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Let's look at the words of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, "Kol Amos she'amru Chachomim b'Keloyim, she'amru Chachomim b'Keloyim v'am b'Shisha." So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, he's saying that b'Keloyim it's an Amma b'Shisha. So therefore, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, we can understand that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, but not by Keloyim, it's not bas Amma b'Shisha. It's b'Amma bas Chamisha. So therefore, yes, the Chachamim are against me, but Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is like me, and therefore I'm saying I hold of the opinion of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. You can't fault me on that. Okay. Now the Gemara wants to know the Abaye Vadatanoi. According to Abaye, he says that all the dinim which are said by Benegay to Mova, Sukkah, and all these things, the Chamisha Tvachim. So he says that the Mishnah speak about some Mishnah speak about Shisha Tvachim, some speak about Chamisha Tvachim. If he says the Mishnah speak about Chamisha Tvachim as well, according to him, for sure, there's a Machloikes Tanoim, this opinion that some Mishnah speak about 5 Tvachim, because he is saying Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's opinion, but the Tanakama for sure argues, and the Tanakama for sure learns that all Amas which are mentioned everywhere are 6 Tvachim. So Rabbi Shimon, Abaye Vadatanoi, it's for sure that that his opinion you can only hold like what the opinion of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel and the Tanna Kama argues. But should we say, according to Rabbi, should we say that not all Tanoim agree with Rabbi? Rabbi, he is the one that said the opinion is that you need each Amma is 6 Tfachim. So is he also dependent on Machlokes? Is he also agreeing only with the Chachamim, which say so clearly that all Ammas are 6? Or maybe even Rabbi Shimon Gamliel also holds the Ammas are 6. In other words, does Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, according to Rabbi, does Rabbi Shimon Gamliel argue with the Rabbi's opinion? Or maybe he can fit in his opinion to work with Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. So the Gemara says, yes, Rabbi will be able to fit in his opinion of even with Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. According to him, both Tanoim agree. The Tanna Kama and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel agree that the Amma is of 6 Tfachim. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel also lashmiina. Amas kloyim lo yetzamtzim. So Rabbi says like this, that of course Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is saying something new and is coming to add something on the Tanna Kama. If he's not coming to add something to the Tanna Kama, so then just repeating the words of Tanna, that's not possible. So therefore he's coming to add something new. So therefore Rabbi says, but he's not coming to argue on the Tanna Kama. Actually, he's coming to add something which is not so clear in the Tanna Kama, and he's specifying to us that Amas Koloim lo yitzamtim. The Amas Koloim you have to be mach, because in the words of the Tanna Kama, it's not clear which ones you use the tight tfachim, and for which Amas do you use, for which dinim do you use the Amas of the loose tfachim. So therefore, the Shimon Gamliel comes to clarify that he agrees with the 6, but everything. But he just come to clarify and add that the Bakaloyim you have to be machmir and to use the bigger amas, not the small amas. Yeah, that's what. Yeah. So therefore, and everybody agrees. Even Shimon Gamliel agrees that every amas is 6 tefachim. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel agrees that all tefachim, all amas from all different types of dinim, are in which mentioned in the Brisa, are of 6 tefachim. The lema amas kalayim lo yitzamtzem. If his whole addition, which is coming to add on what the Brisa is to clarify, that something which was not specified by the Tanna concerning the amas kalayim, that you have to use the bigger amas. So then just say amas kalayim lo yitzamtzem. But amma bashisha lemu'ute mai. Why does he add that all the amas kalayim are of 6 tvachim? We just said before that all amas everywhere are 6 tvachim. So therefore, obviously, when it says the amas kalayim, it's only amas kalayim, and there are some things which are not shisha. Some places which the amma is not from shisha tvach. My love, is it not? It comes to exclude amas sukkah, amas mavoi. That Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is arguing on the Chachomim, and he says that in the sukkah and mavoi, the amas there are from 5 tvachim. Only by kloim we are machmir to use 6 tvachim. In other words, it would not be a kasha on Rabbi. It's just would mean that Rabbi he is of the opinion of like the Chachamim, and Reb Shimon Gamliel is arguing. But beforehand, the Gemara wanted to say that even according to Rabbi, everybody agrees with the Rabbi that all amas are 6 tvachim. So the Gemara says, no, your proof from the fact that Reb Shimon Gamliel says that by kloim it's an amma bashisha tvachim, which is so he's obviously is coming to exclude something there as well. I think. Yeah. Okay. I think I said everything. Yeah. So he's obviously coming. He's coming to exclude something there as well. That there's some amas which are not from shisha tvachim. So that is not to argue on the Tanna Kama. It's not Tanna doesn't come to argue Tanna Kama. It's just using that to teach you that that sometimes there are, which is the mu'ote, my love, mu'ote amas sukkah, the mu'ote amas yisoid amas soivet. He's saying that because there are some amas which taka are not from 4, they're only 5. But what are these? These are not the these are not these are not the amas of Sukkah and Mavoi. They're also 6, but it's the amas which is by the building of the Mizbeach. In the Mizbeach, you had the base of the Mizbeach, which was 1 amma tall, and the Mizbeach had a few, I think we all know the shape of the Mizbeach, and so the Mizbeach, the very last, the widest part of the Mizbeach was at the base, and that widest part was 1 amma wider than the rest of the Mizbeach, because there was like a step that the rest of the Mizbeach became narrower. Now this widest part was 1 amma tall, and there was 1 amma depth, cutting into the depth, and that amma was called Yesod, and that was also used for a drainage, because you would spill the blood into the Yesod and it would drain away in the holes which were there. So that's called Amma Yesod. Then after that drainage Amma, the Mizbeach would go up, would rise 5 ammas, and then after that there was another step in, so to speak, where it went in another amma. That was all around the Mizbeach. It went in another amma, and that was called Seder. After that, there was another 3 ammas to the height of the Mizbeach, besides the Kronos. So, and that amma Seder is the Kohanim would walk on it to do Zerikas Adam, etc. So when we say that the some ammas, which are only 5 tvachim, what are we referring to? We're referring to the amma of the Yesod and the amma of the Soive. Just very briefly, that the Rashi says that the amma of the Yesod was 5 tvachim. It means the height of the amma of the Yesod was 5 tvachim, but the depth of the amma of the Yesod was 6 tvachim. That's what Rashi's opinion. According to the Rambam, both the height and the depth of the amma of the Yesod was 5 tvachim. When it comes to the Soivev, we can only speak about the depth. There's the height. There's no the ammas there were regular ammas, the height of the 5 ammas and the 3 ammas. So the only thing is, as we'll see in the pasuk, it speaks about roichav. So the thing which is mentioned there in the pasuk is roichav, and therefore there, concerning the Soivev, only the depth, the depth of it was amma of 5 tvachim, but the other ammas of the height of the Mizbeach were regular ammas. Okay, and except to the Kronos, which we'll speak about in a minute. And it brings the pasuk, the Eila Midas Mizbeach, the Amos. This is the measurement of Mizbeach, the Amos. Now, according to Rashi's final pirush, so he's saying that this is a continuation of the pasuk of what it says earlier in the pasuk, and therefore, as a continuation of what it says earlier in the pasuk, it says these are the measurements. These are the measurements of the Mizbeach, the Amos in big Amos in Amos. That and explains Amma is Amma v'tefach. These measurements which he gave previously to the Mizbeach concerning the height, etc. So so these measurements which he gave to the Mizbeach earlier in the pasuk, it's those ammas are each amma is an amma. The ammas is amma v'tefach. The ammas were each amma is an amma v'tefach. So in other words, that what we spoke about till now is big ammas. Big ammas, which each one is an amma v'tefach. Why do you mean amma v'tefach? Because when we say amma v'tefach, we mean the small amma, which is an amma v'tefach, is the ammas which we were speaking previously in the pasuk. Okay, so those are the big ammas, and then it says the cheka amma. That means the cheka amma means the yesod, as we will see soon. The Rashi says means a tikkun. It's a tikkun to the mizbeach. So the cheka amma. So the tikkun to the mizbeach, which was the yesod, was 1 amma. Like I said before, there's a machlokes in the Rambam and Rashi whether it's just the depth or if it's just the height or the depth as well. And then the amma roichav. That is the depth of the amma, the width, depth, This is talking about the soviv, as we'll see soon. Ugvula el esfasa soviv zeres ha'echad. Then you have by the edge, you have the border by the edge. So there it's a zeres ha'echad. There's one zeres. A zeres is about half an amma. That's the size from the small finger to the largest finger, like this. So that's the zeres, and so right. So that is referring to the chronos. That is referring to the chronos, as we'll see in a second, and we'll say a bit more explanation. And then it says v'zeh gav hamizbeach. The pasuk continues. It says v'zeh gav hamizbeach. That's the top of the mizbeach. Okay. So the Gemara says cheka amma. That's the yesod, like we said. The amma roichav the soviv. When it says the depth of an amma, that's the soviv. Ugvula el sfasa soviv ela hakronos. That's the chronos. Now, so it says zeres. What it means is that if the radius, not the radius exactly, it's not a circle, but if you put your hand, you put your hand in the middle, one finger in the middle, so then the end of the zeres would be the chronos. I mean, it's like in other words, that there was the zeres on both from the center to the edge of the keren, from the center of the keren to the edge of the keren was a zeres, which is half an amma, and therefore, how much was the whole keren? The keren was a whole amma. From the center till the edge is half an amma. The whole keren is an amma, and that amma also was an amma of 5 tvachim, and that was also both the height of it was only 5 tvachim, and the width of the keren was 5 tvachim. So it was 5 tvachim. Yeah. Right. V'zeh gav hamizbeach, zeh mizbeach hazov. When it says zeh gav hamizbeach, it's not referring to the mizbeach of the rabbanos. It's the mizbeach hazov. That the mizbeach hazov, it pasuk says it was an amma by an amma. So the mizbeach hazov was an amma by an amma of 5 tvachim. Right. So that's the end of this part of the sugya, that we have the machlokes of Rabbi and Rabbi. What should we be machmir? Whether we should be machmir to have an amma of 5 tvachim and an amma of 6 tvachim. That's the chumas which we have to take, whichever goes l'chumra. And according to Rabbi, no, it's always an amma of 6 tvachim, except for the mizbeach. And we have to just make machmir about the half etzba, the tight tvachim and the loose tvachim. Amar Rabbi Barash said in Rav, shiurim like kazayis, kebetza, all these things. These shiurim, chatzitzin, the dinim of chatzitza. The dinim of chatzitza. What's chatzitza of chatzitza by a mikveh, that you have to be, you're not allowed to have if you have a person as a chatzitza in the water and the water and his body. So then it's to the mikveh. So there's different the dinim of chitzin. What's considered the mechitza? The mechitza has to be 10 tefachim, and any other dinim of mechitza which there is, which we'll speak about in the second moment tomorrow, Mishnah. So all these things, shiurim, all the different shiurim which we have, is Allah Mishnah. So the Gemara asks a question. You say it's Allah Mishnah. It's a pasuk. Shiurim the raisi. The shiurim is a. So we learn it from the Torah. They say. Says the pasuk eretz chita u'seira gefen u'seina. So it says the shiva minim are mentioned in the pasuk. And the truth of the matter is that there is things which we learn out from the fact that the shiva minim are mentioned in the pasuk. But the Gemara understood that the reason behind that, why, what's the importance of these shiva minim, is because they give shiurim. So that seems to be that. So the Gemara understood that we learn out the shiurim from these psukim, and that the way I understand it is that's the reason why the 7 minim are choshev, and the dinim which come out from the fact that they're being choshev. Okay. And the Rabbi Chanan said, "Kol pasuk hazeh the shiurim nema." This whole pasuk was said to teach us about shiurim. Nema chita. It says chita. Look at this now. We learn there's a certain shear which is dependent on chita. What shear dependent on chita? Look at this now. We're talking about a hanich, by if somebody goes into a house, which the house has terrace. The person goes into the house, which the house has terrace. There's two things which happen. First of all, he himself becomes tummy, and also that the clothes which he's wearing also become tummy. But there is the difference between the dinim when he becomes tummy and the clothes he's wearing becomes tummy. And what is interesting is that besides the fact that there's even clothes, there's also a difference. That clothes which you're wearing they can become tummy at a different than the person himself, slightly different. But clothes themselves, if you're not wearing them, they have the same din as the person himself. They become tummy immediately. Okay, we'll do it inside. The person is going to buy some noda, and he has different clothes on his shoulders. The sardonov with and he's carrying in his hands the rings and his shoes. So in other words, he's not wearing the clothes. He's not wearing the clothes. So then he becomes whoever hanged Meimiyat, he becomes tummy immediately. As he enters the house, he becomes tummy. And they also become tummy immediately as they enter, because he entered the house, became tummy. The same thing with them. The clothes entered the house, he was not wearing them, so they become so then they become tummy immediately. But if he was wearing his clothes with sandalov, with his rakwa, and the shoes on his feet, with a waist of his rings on his fingers, he's wearing them. He's who tummy miyad. He becomes. Additionally, mentioned that the pasuk says the ha'oichel bebayis yichabes begodav. So there is somebody who eats in the house. If he eats in the house, so then he has to wash his clothes, and as he has to play with his clothes, because the clothes become tummy. So therefore, you see the clothes become tummy when the person eats. In other words, the clothes, the person who's wearing the clothes which is worn by the person don't become tummy immediately as the person. It's only when he eats then his clothes become tummy. Now, it's not. He doesn't actually have to eat for the clothes become tummy, but if he spends enough time enough time, the time it takes to eat, that makes him tummy. So what's the thing is that if a person so that's what he says. So if he came in and was wearing the clothes, the Mishnah says, who tummy me? He's tummy right away. He's tummy right away, and the clothes are tahir till he stays there. The amount which to eat what? Pras half a bread. There is a whole bread and there's half a bread. Now this whole bread is a bread. We're talking about bread which has two meals. Like for instance, you're making an Eruv, so then take a bread to make an Eruv. I mean, bread comes in different sizes, but we're talking about to make a bread for an Eruv. If you want to take one bread to make an Eruv, so you take a bread which is good for 2 meals. How much is 2 meals? The size is 8 beitzim. If it has 8 beitzim, that's the size of 2 meals, and that's why we use the word over here. What's pras? Pras means a broken one, half a bread. So what's half a bread? 4 beitzim. The kids so you have to stay there. The amount of time it takes to eat half a bread. What's the amount of time it takes a bread, which is the volume of 4 beitzim? So if you ate that time it takes it, then the clothes become tummy. The clothes will not become tummy. Now, the bread, the different types of bread. So some bread, the texture is tough and easy, whatever. So it says this. What kind of paschitin? We measure that with paschitin, with wheat, bread made out of wheat. Not barley, because it takes longer. Mesev is sitting down, not always walking around and all that, and it takes longer to eat, but it's sitting down, eat quicker. He's eating some other stuff, which is gives a bit of moisture to it, and that it's quicker to eat. The kids are learning. So the chita is to tell you the shear of a pras b'negei to tuma of a metzora, and that the shear is measured on the time it takes to eat chitin bread, not sa'ir. So that's that shear. Okay. Sa'ir, what's the word sa'ir? That's to teach you the shear of a bone which is metame the oil. Tonight we learn the Mishnah Etzem Kisayra, which is the time of the Magid Mas. The Tanya with the Islam we learn Etzem Kisayra, if you have a bone without any meat, because the meat is a kazayas of meat, is metame the oil. But if you have a bone, just plain bones, so some bones are not metame the oil. And how much? How about if you have a small bone, then it will be metame the Magid Mas. But also that, what's the minimum size? Etzem Kisayra, if you have a bone which is the size of a barley, so then metame the Magid Mas. So then it's metame by touching it and carrying it. But still, it won't be metame ba'oil. Metame ba'oil, you have to have either the majority of the bones, or a binyan, or a binyan, etc. Then even the shedra, then then it will be metame even ba'oil. So when you get to a bone, to a single bone or a few bones, so then the shear is etzem kisayr. It's another shear. And what is the Geffen? It's the amount of this nozzle, the amount of revius yain for a nozzle. Okay, and we will start over here. I will say that what does it mean the revius yain nozzle? That means if you drink that revius yain, you get malchus. But the Tosfos over here explains, it's based on a Rashi in another place, that when it says revius yain nozzle, it doesn't mean just to drink the revius of wine. It means that by nozzle, according to the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, so according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, even when you eat grapes and leaves and so on, all these things, if you eat those things and the leaves and all these things, so those things are also the shear is a revius. Usually it's a kazayas. I don't know want to go into details over here. But according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, these leaves and branches and all these things, so the shear is also a revius. So when you want to know how big is the revius, for the if it's wine, there's no problem. It's simple. Revius yain is revius yain. But if it's these branches and all these the things of the grapes, so then it has to be the volume of a revius of wine. Now, a revius of wine is a bit more than a revius of water because of the tension which you have, or the thickness of the wine which you have. Therefore, you are able to, into a revius, you're able to pour in more wine than water. So therefore, the volume of wine which goes into a revius is going to be more than water, and the measurement for the eating of the leaves and so on for a nazir, which is not it, is based on a revius of wine, not a revius of water. That's from here we learn out the shear of achila for a nazir.